Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a bit of an overview, a bit of a revisit of Grand Theft Auto 4, the complete edition, I guess technically, but whatever, GTA 4. What an absolute banger of a game. It's hard to say what the best GTA is, because I love so many of them. Like, for the longest time, I would probably say Vice City was my favorite, just because I have a bit of an 80s-centric way of looking at things, given my age bracket and general music taste. You know, thematically, it's such a theme park, Miami Vice kind of thematic setting. But having said that, even GTA 5 I really like in a much more grounded or arguably even depressing way. The three main characters are fascinatingly well realized. But GTA 4 almost stands apart in a way compared to the others. It's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more melancholy. There's always been a biting satire to the GTA games that most other games can't even come close to capturing. Very much the American dream, and arguably the price that you have to pay for it. It's a dirty job, and, you know, if everyone could win in America, then it would be easy, wouldn't it? And so, you know, I think a core theme of a lot of the Grand Theft Autos is to kind of hold a mirror up and show you some of the absurdity of Americana in an almost playful way. There's something a little bit more biting, a little bit more real, even depressing even, or definitely a big layer of melancholy about Niko Bellic and his story, which plays out over the course of GTA 4. It's a sad story, and he's a sympathetically sad character. Like, I would argue if GTA generally is still cheeky humor, doesn't fly too close to the sun, GTA 4 is the one that flies the closest. To the point where you might come away at certain turns and chapters and parts of it going, man, that's heavy stuff. It was a bit more than I signed up for. But that might even make it the best GTA, or at least the realest, most ambitious. Anyway, I know I'm talking a bit philosophical and platitudes about it, but I have just come off the back of playing a bit for B-roll, and it still holds up. It's still such a great slow burn in the beginning. There's something very magic about the locomotion of the games. Like, previously we looked at Sleeping Dogs. Obviously I'm rattling off a whole bunch of games and you can just check the past few days. In fact, if you're not across it, what I'm essentially doing is doing a Christmas list of a bunch of games that I want to revisit and review in the next year. Being that they're all on sale, this is a good opportunity for me to shout out. Maybe you want to scoop them all up and join my Discord and play them in concert with me as I review them, get a bit of community going. But at the moment, this is going for like $8 or $9, so you're mad not to get it, even if it's revisiting it from back in the day, or maybe you never played it in the first instance. It still holds up. But there's something about the locomotion of vehicles. Once you get your hands on it, like, again, I've just played a chunk of it, and it's got to do with the way that the suspension frames work or something like that, but they move in such a heavy, weighty, almost like, well, definitely difficult to drive and almost bad, like if you really wanted to talk about player satisfaction and the feedback loop, but it's not really going for that. It's actually going for a bit more of an immersive locomotion. The same could be said about when your character's walking and their swagger and they're moving through the world. It does something that a lot of other games don't, where it allows you to kind of interface with the world as if you are one of the characters driving or walking or what have you. You kind of have the same constraints that the NPCs have. Normally, these kind of worlds, you actually stand starkly apart when you think about it. The way you move, the way you traverse. I mean, Assassin's Creed is obviously a very extreme example, but it helps illustrate the point, being able to climb up and do all this stuff that other characters don't do. You have a sort of a higher fidelity when it comes to interfacing and interacting with the environment. And there is something a little bit more grounded about the physics system around vehicles and their locomotion in Grand Theft Auto that grounds you a bit more. But yeah, look, I don't need to lecture you on what GTA is. You know, everyone knows. Maybe you missed 4. You know, there are a couple missing. I don't think I ever actually played San Andreas. Maybe I should put that on the list. I have nothing against it. I just, for whatever reason in my life, I skipped it. So there's some untapped potential. But GTA 4, like I said, it is a much more miserable, dark look. The traditionally much more cheekier, I suppose, approach to GTA Americana satire. And at the core of it all is Niko Bellic. He's Serbian, I think. He's East Bloc, running away from his problems, imported, and even like the theme song, it might be the greatest theme song of any GTA, and it's got, those twangy balalaikas in there with symphonic overtures. It's just really striking, but also it kind of sits in that Eastern Euro vibe. But he's a sympathetic soul, right? Like in a different world, Niko is a good man, a gentleman, right? But he's under circumstance been driven to extreme violence and making these decisions in his life that hang really heavy on him. And even in the short time that I've been revisiting it, he has introspection. They weave it in as a bit of humor, Roman falling asleep while he's talking about his problems. But, he is developed insofar that he can recognize that he was young, he's made mistakes, and the guilt of it hangs on him so heavily. And he just has this kind of really tragic worldview. It's very sympathetic. And then obviously his foil is his cousin Roman, who tricked him by being kind of a big talker, the mansion, the big titty girls, the sports cars, and all of this turns out to be lies. Roman clearly has this dreamer worldview where, it's only a half truth or a half lie in the view of a Roman type person, because to him, these are things that manifest in his future. These are things that will come. The mansion is real. It's just I won't have it for another X years, right? And that in and of itself is kind of a tragic character as well. So the two of them bounce off of each other as fairly extreme, but ultimately kind of entwined, tragic core dual characters. But it also on-ramps for shenanigans, and Niko finds out very quickly that Roman's in deep with all the same loan shark, all the same power brokers. Pretty much America turns out very quickly to be the same thing, but with a different coat of paint over the top of it. But yeah, it is one of those games that, as much as I find myself focusing on the kind of the misery guts version of the game, and that is definitely a big core of it, there is still a cast of absolute memorable characters. One could almost argue that while it isn't such a stylized, vibrant look, even looking at Vice City and to a point GTA 5, right? It still tackles expertly the rise through and the realization of the true American dream, if I'm going to engage GTA on its terms and how it's trying to tell its story, which is to say that the American dream is there. You just have to get your hands dirty. Be willing to go the extra yard that all the other normal people that don't realize the end state aren't willing to do. And so through that, you go from off the boat in your tracky dacks doing petty crime all the way to reenacting scenes from Heat and bank heists in the main Liberty City CBD. Anyway, it's really good coming back to it. Even the short time that I spent with it, the nostalgia just washes over you. And in a way, part of it actually kind of puts me off playing it. It's like, do I want to put myself through it again? It's just a video game, but arguably there is a lot of misery in there. But I suppose that's the core or the key ingredient to telling a good tragic story of a very sympathetic and arguably one of the most grounded and realistic main characters of any of Rockstar's stuff. Anyway, like I said, bit of a mixed sales pitch. Not to say that this game isn't excellent. It is in fact wonderful, and it was cool to go back to it. I would highly recommend anyone check it out if you slept on it. I do get younger blokes in my audience that maybe never played this. It absolutely holds up still to this day. There is something about the acting, the mocap or whatever they've done in Locomotion. Even though there's a slightly exaggerated, almost low quality, cartoonized something to the characters, they still have enough inflection and expressiveness in their character models to make them look very sympathetic and real. There's something really quite cool about it. Fortnight before fortnight, it depends how you want to look at it. Oh, while I'm also thinking about it, technical difficulties, I was having some stuttering, I suppose you could call it. Jittering is probably a better term for it in the cutscenes, and that seems pretty apparent, at least from my gamer experience. That's because the game's used to running internally capped cutscenes, and for whatever reason on the PC complete version, they're not. And so you've got runaway frame rates causing problems, and I looked into it briefly. It seems that there are ways to patch it, because there's no in-game setting for such a thing, like no frame cap at all. However, I just used the NVIDIA Master app to put a global frame frame rate cap on the game, you know, at like 55, 58 frames or something like that. And that seemed to resolve the problem. I might end up doing the patch fix when I do come back to review this further down the track. But just in case you've made it this far, you're curious, and you've had that jittering issue, like I said, logic drove me to assume that it's supposed to be running the cinematics at 30 frames because that's how most cinematics run. But unfortunately, that option's been overlooked in this edition. Okay, cool. Let's finish up there. Game's great. I'm going to review it in the future. Pick it up on the cheap now. Join my community and maybe come along for the ride while I review it when I play through it in the future. Anyway, team, I might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.